The Bible classifies the 7 deadly sins: greed, envy, sloth, wrath, gluttony, pride, and lust as the characteristics of people which will lead to unhappiness. One particular sin evident in our world today is greed. Greed is defined as an excessive desire to possess wealth or goods. The greed that exists in our world leads people to unhappy and selfish lives. Greed is evident throughout individual people, corporate companies, and in our government, and it has plunged the United States the most throughout its history.
There were many significant acts that led to the American Revolution because of the greedy desire of interest from Britain. Among them, the Tea Act was the most fatal one. Tea Act, which passed by Parliament on May 10, 1773, granting the British East India Company a monopoly on tea sales in American colonies. From the act, the colonies could purchase tea from Dutch from 2 shillings per pound and then smuggle it into the colonies for only 3 shillings per pound, while the same tea from England would cost merchants 4 shillings per pound after all the duties. The act was based on self-interest of the British government. Its main purpose of passing the Tea Act was not to raise revenue from the colonies, but to bail out the floundering East India Company, a company that was experiencing an economic downturn following the French and Indian War. Of the act, the company was only permitted to exercise its exclusive monopoly by selling its tea at auction in London. The Tea Act removed this restriction and extended the company's right to export tea directly to the colonies, without having to sell through wholesalers. The act also eliminated tax on tea entering Britain. However, the Parliament did not anticipate that the Tea Act would be controversial since it actually lowered the cost of tea. This win-win situation for the East India Company and the British government was definitely not popular among the colonists. They were upset because the tax on tea continued. Tea was a popular drink, and they didn't like having to pay a tax on it. In addition, the grievances between the colonies and England weren't simply a dispute about taxes on tea, but a larger underlying dispute over self-government, arbitrary British rule, resistance to a tea monopoly, and ham-fisted British policy. They didn't have representatives in Parliament that could vote on the proposed taxes. British citizens are supposed to have representatives in Parliament that could vote on proposed taxes. The colony believed this was another example of the British government trying to control them. The colonists feel their voice weren't being heard. The colonists have complained about the tax laws, yet the tax on tea continued. The colonies believe this was another example of the British government favoring British business and the British people. The colonists feel their concerns were always secondary to the concerns of the British. The colonists believed the British were continuing to send a message that the British could tax the colonies at any time. The governor of Boston insists that the tea be unloaded and the tax be paid. Their resistance culminated in the Boston Tea Party on December 16, 1773, in which colonists boarded East India Company ships and dumped their loads of tea overboard. Parliament responded with a series of harsh measures intended to stifle colony-resistant British rule, which known as the Intolerable Act. Then, 2 years later, the Revolutionary War began. So it is fair enough to say that the Boston Tea Act is the trigger of the American Revolution War. The Boston Tea Party affects our life today because it played a key role in leading to American independence. Every right and privilege that we enjoy is a result of the bravery and determination of the early colonists. Without the Tea Party, the war wouldn't have ignited so quickly. The Boston Tea Party turned Parliament's and King George's heart angry and cold. The Intolerable Acts which followed the Boston Tea Party angered the colonists as the Tea Party had angered the British. The Revolutionary War might have happened differently, or the war may have stayed at a civil and non-violent level. However, peace with England is not always beneficial. If the war never happened and we weren't interdependent, there wouldn't be a constitution or a declaration of independence. We wouldn't be free and would be under a monarchy instead of a democracy. We may not even have dollar bills and we may still have been using pounds. If the Tea Party didn't ignite anger in Britain, our entire existence on this continent would have been rewritten as just a settlement or an extension of Britain. The Boston Tea Party is the big turning point in the Revolutionary War, and to an extent a big turning point in all of American history. Nowadays, when we're talking about the causes of the Revolutionary War, we only talk about how American people were strongly independent and how they wanted to do things for themselves, but ignored the other side. What if British did not pose such greedy act on their colonies? What if they treated their colonies equally? What if there's no self-government and arbitrary British rule? Maybe there won't have any revolutions, and America will still be the colony. However, when a country is so powerful that it has controlled 14 colonies, greed is unavoidable because of excessive selfishness, which is the result of ignorance, lack of wisdom, kindness, and love,